into our Supta Baddha Konasana. And of course you can always pad your knees here if you need a little support. Just come on down and close your eyes. Take a couple of big breaths. Start to feel the body release. Just letting the weight of your body really settle right into the mat. Starting to soften through the jaw, the space around the eyes, the forehead. Just starting to notice the energy in your body, how you meet yourself in your practice this evening. Noticing if there's any intention that you'd like to sit in for this practice, go ahead and do so here. Take a few more deep breaths. You might start to move around a little bit, sweeping the arms over your head, rocking the head side to side. And then when you feel ready, you can start to reach your fingers towards your thighs and use your hands to press your knees together. And then from here, you can draw the knees into the chest and just give yourself a little squeeze, maybe finding a little bit of movement side to side, circling around. Let's just gently roll off to either side. And really slowly press your way up, coming through your fetal position. And we're gonna come right over into a tabletop. So you can flip it over. Feel free to pad your knees here. Got like my whole stack of pillows. And landing your hands under your shoulders. We'll take a little bit of free movement. So just finding what feels right for you here as you just slowly start to warm up and explore how the body feels tonight. And coming back to center, we'll keep the knees right underneath the hips, or maybe I should say the hips right over the knees. And we're gonna walk the hands out, coming into a puppy pose. You can let your forehead come down to the mat, or if that feels like a little too much, you can always slide a pillow or some kind of prop underneath the head. And we'll let the sit bones keep sticking up in the air as you drop your chest. And again, just finding those nice full breaths and letting the exhales encourage this sense of surrender in the body. Notice any part of the body that's still kind of gripping and see what you can let go of. Again, just kind of noticing where you go off to in your mind. Just being an observer of yourself here. Nothing is right or wrong or better or worse. Just bringing a sense of awareness of what happens when you get pretty still and pretty quiet. And when we start to tap into different parts of the body. Take a few more full breaths here. And moving really, really slowly when you're ready, you'll just start to press into your hands and walk yourself back into your tabletop, and then just try to let your spine kind of find its own way into neutral. So try to resist the urge to wiggle around and just notice the spine coming back into place. And then from here, we're gonna drop onto the elbows. You might need to move a little bit forwards on your mat. We're gonna land in a sphinx. So your elbows are gonna come underneath your shoulders, and then you can extend your legs behind you and lower your hips to the mat. So you're in a little bit of a back bend. If this feels like it's a little too much, you can always slide your elbows a little bit more forwards. You can also let your feet come a little bit wider at the back of the mat. That sometimes feels like a little less pressure on the low back. Finding a little bit of a lift in the chest. And then you can stay here, keeping the head supported, or if it feels good for you, you can go ahead and let the head just fall right down. You can also slide a prop underneath the head if you want to land it on something. So one thing that's a little bit challenging in Sphinx is that we don't want the elbows to come a little too wide, right? Because then we're just scrunching the shoulder blades together. So really making sure your elbows are underneath your shoulders. Try to unclench the glutes, release the legs, release the jaw. Notice if there's a part of the body that really wants to hang on in this pose. For me, it's the glutes really like to be active in this shape. So just seeing if you can continuously relax a little bit deeper. I once heard this pose described as Like imagine that you were a string of Christmas lights with just one little bump in the string. So just kind of draping yourself down and you just have this one little bump. We'll take a couple more breaths. You can start to lift your head just gently if it fell down. We're going to bring the hands together, stacking one on top of the other, and then rest the forehead right on top of that. And you might take a little shimmy of the hips, releasing that low back. From here, we're going to keep the head centered and just slide your left knee out to the left, so you're making a 90-degree angle at your hip and at your knee joint. So it's going to mean that your knee is going to come off of your mat. If you feel like you need a little bit of a cushion there, bring a really low fold in your blanket underneath just for that little bit of cushion. And then sometimes that can also cause a little discomfort on the right hip bone, so pad that up as well if you feel like you need it. And then here you can really turn your head in any way that feels best. If you were to turn your head to the right, it's going to be a little bit of a twist in the spine. And then just once you find your spot, scanning through the body to release everything once again. See if here you can just really tune in to the rise and fall of your belly as you breathe. Allowing yourself to just kind of ride that wave. A couple more breaths here on this side. Remember, you're in no rush at all, so if you feel like you want to linger, go ahead and take your time. When you feel ready, you can start to bring your left leg back to the mat. Take a moment to just feel the two sides of your body as you come back to neutral. If you're using a blanket, you can take a moment to slide it around to the other side of your mat. And then we'll just slip that right knee out to the right side. And again, your head can go in any direction. In this case, if you want to turn to the left, that's going to be a really gentle twist for the spine. Again, taking that scan through the body, letting go of anything that might have gripped up in the shift. And just riding that rise and fall of the breath. Giving yourself permission to do nothing else right now. Letting the body restore itself in these gentle postures. Letting the breath make its way in and out of the body. Take a few more breaths here. When you feel ready, you can start to slide the right leg back to the mat. And just take a moment coming back to neutral. From here, you're going to press your way back into your Sphinx pose. So just lifting back up onto your elbows for a moment. We're going to do a double, or we'll do one at a time, but we're going to do a thread of the needle. And so you can slide your right arm underneath your left armpit. You might want to slide something underneath your head and extend your left arm just straight out. Now, notice here, if this feels like you're just really cramped up, like there's just not enough space, especially sometimes our boobs get in the way, then you can make this a little bit more spacious and a little bit more restorative by sliding a pillow or cushion or some kind of bolster right underneath your belly. So kind of between the hips and the chest, right on the soft part of your belly. And that'll just give you a little bit of lift, so you have a little bit more space for that arm to thread through without the arm coming up in your neck. So you want to make sure it's still across your chest. And then again, you can pad the head. Maybe the head needs to be a little bit more lifted if you lifted your belly up. And then just let that left arm relax in front of you as you find your spot here. Again, relaxing the legs and the glutes behind you. Take a couple more breaths here. And remember to move really slowly. You can start to press into your left arm to lift yourself up. And slip that right arm out from underneath you. Slide it in front of you a little bit. And then we'll just move right over to the other side. The left arm moves over to the right. The left ear comes down. You might need to adjust your props a little bit. And settling in, maybe right away noticing that this side might feel a little bit different. Take a few more big breaths. And in your own time, you can start to lift yourself up, slipping your left arm out. We'll land right on the elbows again for a moment. And then just really slowly press yourself up and back into a child's pose. You might enjoy keeping the knees together for this one so that your spine can really round over the thighs. And you might even keep this prop right in front of you if you have one there to land the head and the arms on. Otherwise, it might feel nice to let your head drop and let your arms sweep back by your sides, coming a little bit deeper into the rounding over your thighs. Just taking a few moments here to really breathe into that low back. We're just in a bit of a back bend for quite a while. And then we'll start to slide the fingertips under the shoulders and just really gently roll yourself up into a seated position. From here, we're gonna just let the hips fall to the right. So your right hip comes down. We're gonna come into a double pigeon. So let your right shin come forward so it's about parallel to the front edge of your mat. And then swing your left shin up and over that one. So stacking your legs. Now you might need to come up onto a prop here. That'll give you more space in the hips. You might also want to use props to support if you have like a gap here. We'll ground the sit bones down really well. Lift up nice and tall, soften your shoulders. And reaching the arms out in front of you, we're gonna swing the left arm underneath the right arm, finding an eagle wrap in the arms. You can also grab for your shoulders if the wrap doesn't happen. We'll take an inhale to draw those elbows up and away. And then as you exhale, folding any amount down. You can also stay seated if the fold becomes too much. That's just gonna deepen the stretch in your hips. So maybe the elbows land on your shins, maybe the elbows hook in front of your shins, or maybe they just hang. That's fine too. If you feel like you do need some support, you can use any amount of pillows, or if you have blocks handy, you can land your elbows on a little landing pad in front of you. And again, try to release the clenching in the jaw and the thighs. Notice that if you allow yourself to, you'll get a little bit heavier and a little bit deeper after about 20 breaths or so. Letting go of the muscles, just letting the body release. Again, notice what happens here. Notice where you go. Notice what comes up. Notice if the breath changes. Just observing, free of judgment. Getting a little bit curious about ourselves and our reactions, our responses. What are our go-tos? At any point, if you feel like you need a big exhale, just let it rip. Maybe it feels like the breath got a little bit stuck somewhere. Take a couple more breaths here. Try not to be in a rush. Really gently and slowly, you'll start to lift yourself up, releasing your arms. Maybe your hands help you lift. Really gently unstack your legs. You can use your hands here and just step your feet to the mat in front of you. We'll take a little lean onto the palms, placing them just behind your hips. And a gentle windshield wiper of the knees. Just let that go. We'll come right over to the other side. So let's bring the left shin down first, and then stacking the right shin on top of that one. And again, maybe using some props in between or underneath your seat. This side might be like a whole world different. So take your time to set it up, lifting up nice and tall, finding your sit bones. And when you're ready, we'll reach the arms out and swing right under left this time, wrapping it up. Using the inhale, draw your elbows up and away. And then exhale, if you're folding, go ahead and fold into it. And maybe finding a little landing pad for your elbows. Whatever works for this side. And then just noticing as you settle in and you release the clenching. And let the breath flow. And maybe feeling a little bit heavier after some time in the posture. You might feel like you can come a little bit deeper. Just letting yourself sink further if there's the space. Notice if there's any kind of sneaky clenching in the body. So the hands, maybe they can be a little bit softer. The face. The belly. The legs. Noticing the places that your breath really expands your body. Feeling the rib cage get bigger. We'll take a few more full, slow breaths here. No rush. And when you feel ready, you can start to press yourself back up. Releasing the arms, stacking the spine, being really gentle, and we'll take our windshield wiper again, so slowly stepping the feet to the mat, landing on your palms behind you, and just taking that little rock. And then from here, we're gonna come into a wide-legged seat. So making sure you're tipped onto your sit bones. Again, you might come up and onto a blanket if you find it difficult to sit upright and like lift in your spine without lifting your butt. So grounding down. And then take a moment to just, I like to kind of shake out the legs a little bit here just to encourage them to really release. I know depending on kind of where you're gonna go, you might use a number of props landing in front of you, so you can build yourself like a little ramp with a number of pillows, or if you have blocks, and you can just drape yourself right over the ramp. Or you can make it a little bit more yin without the props. And just think about continuing to lengthen the heart forwards as you let the head heavy you down between your legs. And then here, a nice in between, it might be landing your elbows on something, just if you're not quite ready to be all the way down there. Of course, you're welcome to support the head if you feel like you need. Try to keep releasing the legs. And especially in forward folds, there's like a tendency to really want to pull ourselves deeper. So see if you can really relax the arms and resist that temptation. Notice if your shoulders can be a little bit more relaxed down your back. Just really letting the jaw and the tongue hang. And notice if your head can get a little heavier with an exhale without force, but just noticing if you've been kind of holding yourself up a little bit, letting it go a little bit deeper. big breath in and open the mouth to let it go. And take your time slowly pressing yourself back up. Really gently stacking the spine. You can remove any props that you've got between your legs. And then just use your hands to scoop your knees in towards your chest. You might just give yourself a little squeeze here. Maybe a little shimmy. All right, from here we're gonna set up for one kind of final big pose before we come all the way down onto our backs. And so we'll start by grabbing a blanket, and you're gonna unfold it so that it's pretty wide, definitely wider than your mat. And we'll go across, so just imagine that my mat was going like this. I'm just gonna stay facing you guys. So you'll go across your mat widthwise like that, and then you're gonna stack a number of props in front of that. We're gonna come into a frog pose. So again, it's gonna be dependent on just how supported you think you're gonna wanna be. But I'm gonna say pretty supported would feel pretty nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and stack everything up. Be tall there. And you'll land in a tabletop. Let your props come just onto your blanket. So there's just a little bit of overlap. And then you'll find like a tabletop right over that structure. And then when you're ready, you're just gonna let your knees slide out. And I want your pelvis to be right on the end of the props. So there's a little bit of support right underneath your hips as your knees slide open and you end up kind of hugging your props. Now, of course, assess here if you feel like you need anything else, maybe just a little extra boost for the head, or maybe you want your hands to land on something right out in front. Go ahead and adjust as you need to. And then just relax yourself down. If you've had your head turned to one side this whole time, just go ahead and switch it up. letting the body just get a little heavier and heavier with each exhale. Really feeling the weight of your body sink down into your props, into the floor. Take a few more breaths here. Let your breath get a little bit deeper. Start to find your hands pressing into the floor, slowly lifting yourself off of your props and just gently sliding your knees all the way back together. And come to sit on your heels for a moment. And you can deconstruct this situation. So we're going to take one more shape before we come into our final Shavasana. And it's going to be legs up the wall. So if you have a wall nearby, great. If you don't, that's okay too. So the most supportive is going to be to just kind of scoot your butt up to the wall and then spin yourself right up. And you might land a blanket underneath your head or maybe even a blanket underneath your sacrum if you want a little bit of padding there. But if you prefer to just stay on your mat, you can slide a folded up blanket right underneath your sacrum here. And then just kick your legs up. Again, it might feel nice to drape your arms over your head or maybe hands on your belly, just whatever feels most natural to you. And especially if your legs are in midair and not up against a wall, make sure you're relaxing the knees and the feet, right? So you're not like pressing up through your heels. You might draw your shoulder blades a little bit together behind you so you have that nice support underneath the back. Lengthening the back of the neck with a slight tuck of the chin. And just letting that energy move around in the body a little bit. Take about one more breath. You can really slowly bring yourself down when you're ready. Feeling the blood coming back to your feet. And then if you have a prop underneath you, sliding it out of the way, letting the hips come down. Let's roll off to one side and press back up into a seat just for a moment so we can set up our nice juicy Shavasana. So from here, we're gonna build ourselves a ramp. And so I'm gonna if you have a block, you probably know how to use your block to build a ramp, but just in case folks watching this don't have blocks at home, I'm gonna set it up without using a block. So you'll use a couple of pillows stacked kind of long ways across the top of your mat, and then you can put one big pillow leaning up against that. And we're just gonna come into a nice supported corpse pose. You might also wanna slide your blanket in a little roll up underneath your knees. And then we're just gonna lean back. Right, so the bottom of this pillow or bolster is gonna kind of land right at the low back. So there's still some support there. Adjust as you need to, of course. And if it feels like the arms are doing any work at all, you can also slide some little pillows underneath your forearms, building yourself like a little throne. Make sure those shoulders slide down the back, close your eyes, and just allow yourself to be held here. your body stay soft and heavy as you start to bring your awareness gently back, feeling yourself here on your props, on your mat, being aware of your physical body, becoming aware of the space around you. You can start to move your fingers and your toes. Maybe take a couple big breaths. A little rock of the head or stretch through the arms. We'll step the feet onto the mat or onto the blanket that was underneath your knees and just roll it off to your left side. You can stay up on your ramp or you can roll right off of it, whatever feels good as you come into your fetal position. Keeping the eyes closed as you press your way into a seat. Again, no rush at all to get there. Taking your time to feel the sit bones ground and feel the spine lift. Soften the shoulders. Bring hands together in front of the heart. And just take a moment to really thank yourself for carving out this time, for supporting yourself in this way and in all the ways that you choose to. Take a big breath in through the nose and open the mouth, letting it go. Namaste. All right. Well, thank you.